Hey everyone, welcome to another Dapr community call. It's February 18th, 2026, and I'm Mark Duiker, one of the Dapr community managers. Thanks to Digwit for sponsoring our streaming software. We are streaming to YouTube, which is the best place because you can leave some comments there and we can engage with you. Also to LinkedIn and to X. All right, let me show you welcome, Walter. Nice to see you. On the agenda today is a Dapr Agent SDK update by Sam Coyle and Casper Nielsen, and after that we'll do a .NET SDK update with Waldo, and we conclude as usual with the community show and tell. And maybe you can also hint a bit on what's coming in Dapr 1.17 by our speakers here. So yeah, let me welcome Samantha and Casper. Hello, both of you.
Hi.
How are you doing? And yeah, I'm very curious what you'll be sharing, because the Dapr agent developments are going so fast. And Sam, I think you're like posting all these updates. Like, is it like every week? I see them so frequently. It's really great to see.
Yeah, you are teeing me up very well. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, we have so many Dapr agent updates to share with everyone and share with the community. So yeah, Casper and I are super excited to be here, and thank you all for your time.
Cool.
You can go on to the next slide for me. You teed me up perfectly for the demo that I have prepped. So I will be going over this release note agent. So Mark mentioned I've been making lots of announcements, and every time I cut a release for Dapr agents, we make an announcement. And so Casper and I looked at, well, how can we automate this? And we created a release note agent using Dapr agents, so dog fooding, and it works. And so that's what I'm going to share here today. And I'll kind of scope it in the lens of some of the updates that we've been making for the memory management and state revamp to make things a lot more stable and durable as we're making this journey to Dapr Agents v1.0, because we want this thing to be production ready and reliable. And so making sure it's durable is part of that. So I guess I'll go ahead and share my screen and give everyone some of the context on this release note agent.
Yes.
Share my screen. All right. So this is pretty much my agent. It's got its role, it's got its name, and its goal to summarize the release notes provided, because again, I want to automate this for myself as best we can. And so yeah, this is the agent at its core, and it's got some instructions. It has some tools that we've added, and our Dapr chat client that we're using for the interactions with these different LLM providers. So this is using the conversation API under the hood, which you'll hear a ton of really great and exciting announcements in the upcoming celebration event for some of the conversation API updates. You can see here I'm using an OpenAI conversation component. And just to give y'all some context, this is my instruction prompt for the agent. We're basically saying, okay, be clear and concise. And I have a few different environment variables set locally, saying okay, this is the tag to create release notes for, do it for the Dapr agents repo, just use the corresponding commits, right? Because this is basically safeguarding, saying please don't hallucinate. And then I always like to give a call out for new contributors. So definitely, Casper and I went and added that to make sure we're thanking new people for joining our project and joining the Dapr open source community. And from there, we are connecting to the remote GitHub MCP server to get all of the tools that we need for this summary agent. Excuse me. So in terms of what I'll be sharing, I've created this project called Cool Cat, and I've enabled some agent infrastructure to be auto deployed for me. So I don't have to worry about bringing in a ton of state pieces into my agent. So it's super slim, and I'm just using the Digrid managed state store under the hood for things like memory and so forth. So I've ran that, and I am running this multi-app run file for our summary agent app ID, running our release note agent that we all just looked at. So if I run this application, And you can see here, we have a few things going on. It's looking at my components, and I do have a few conversation components, a resiliency policy that does apply to the conversation components, and I'm using the managed components in Diagrid. And as that's running, I'll go ahead and show y'all what we're looking at in the UI. So as I mentioned, I'm in my Cool Cat project, and I just made this app ID, this summary agent demo, and we know that because of this app ID here, summary agent demo. And I have all of these different components that are auto deployed and managed for me with that project enablement flag that we added. And so in terms of some of these state updates, you can see a few different components here, and I actually have an extra one that I have deployed in another app ID. But so we have agent memory. Now, when we talk about agent memory, we think about conversation history. And so before, we weren't the most efficient, honestly, when it came to our agent memory. And this was more or less like a duplication of our conversation history as our agent progressed. And so we've made this much more slimmed down. There's no more duplication of the data. And this is just that long-term memory summarization. So that's what we've changed it to now. We have a summarization step for making this like the long-term memory summary for our workflow. We also have our agent workflow state component, and we used to have it to where if you were working with your agent, you could specify something like a session ID. But now with these latest releases and latest changes, we've made it to where basically this session is a workflow instance. And so we've also reduced a lot of data that we've been managing here and using the runtime for a lot of our source of truth. So this is a lot more slimmed down as well and much more efficient. And I'll show you all the keys here in a bit. And we also have the agent registry component enabling our agent discovery and maintaining that static metadata for our agent. And then we have this agent runtime that Casper will dive into a bit deeper here in a few moments. Now, we've kind of talked about this. Let's go to what some of this data looks like. So just for us to make sure my agent is still running, like things are going on, and we'll come back to that here in a bit. But just to dive a bit more deep into some of the state changes that we've been working on. I mentioned things are a bit more efficient when it comes to our keys. So now I can come in and I can see, okay, this is my workflow. This is the instance ID that ran. So this is my workflow state. And I can come in and I can, maybe I'll look at this one. I can go in and expand it and look at, okay, what are the messages that have occurred? So I did run this earlier this morning, and you can see like the first prompt was create this release note summary. And then we got back this assistant message saying, okay, use this GitHub tool and use these args, which I mentioned, we're using the Dapr agents repo, and this is my latest tag. So we can see like the conversation is kind of churning and things are going on. So this is now what the workflow data looks like. And if I want to look at the summary, this long-term memory data, now it's super slick, super efficient. We have a management API on top of it, so you can purge your memory, and it's not just an append-only thing. So this is much more useful. So this is like a past run, just as my workflow is going. And I have the registry store key here where you can see the static metadata about this past run of an agent. So you can see this was, this actually is the demo agent we're running right now. And this is all of the different static metadata about my agent. And you can actually see here, it's pretty cool. There are so many tools that I've given my agent access to, which I can see that here through the state store, which that's pretty good insights for me to think, oh, maybe I should restrict some of these. Anyways, let's go check out my workflow. It is currently running. Start time, yeah, a few minutes ago. So like this is live, it's still running. And this is me saying, hey, create the release note summary. And this is the execution of my durable agent workflow. So super cool. You can see it got a lot of tools that it's running and saving the tool results to my state store and updating that conversation history. And so all of this is like super workflow centric, and we see that in the state keys. Yeah, I mean, that's mostly what I have here. And let's go down and look at what it ran last. Okay, so part of the prompt, I mentioned, oh, I actually don't remember if I mentioned it, but part of the prompt also included calling out to, yes. So I've provided a project board ID. And so we've told it, hey, also utilize the project board to give me a summary of some of the upcoming work items. So if y'all are curious about some of the work items coming up, you can actually see it actually is almost complete. Like this is my release note summary, which is super cool. You can see various highlights such as the durable agent orchestrator was added. So now the durable agent is an orchestrator, and I'll show y'all that here in a sec. And we have a few different things like quick starts, and it even gives call out. So like that's me, that's Casper, here's Mark Doiker. And we have, let's see. Well, yeah, we have the things that are coming up next. So this is the summary. Yeah, I mean, a lot has gone on in this last release. And in terms of some of the other updates that I wanted to quick highlight before I quit screen sharing. So this is just another quick start that I have as an example. It's one of the quick starts that a lot of community members would use for orchestrators. And before we had things like this LLM orchestrator class that you would bring in to create your orchestrator. Well, but now one of the features in this last release was to enable the durable agent to be an orchestrator itself. And you can set different orchestration modes in the execution config. So maybe if I don't want it to be like the LLM orchestrator that we had before, maybe I can say, hey, okay, use the random or the round robin orchestration mode for my durable agent interacting with these other agents. So this is another huge update where this is now deprecated and will be removed in a future release. And also, if you use the regular agent class for creating agents, that will soon be deprecated as well. So going back, that was some of the updates. Now we can see my workflow is completed, and I think that's kind of my mic drop moment to go ahead and pass things off to Casper.
Thank you so much, Sam. I think one of the things we can also mention is that we do intend on publishing this release note agent as a consumable GitHub action, so that others can consume that, and that also goes for all of the other Dapr repos. So we can reap the benefits of this agent writing consistent release notes across the ecosystem. So my update, I'll jump straight into VS Code, but I'm going to share a little bit about the. So as you heard Sam say multiple times, the registry is static data. We're going to change that up a little bit, and we're going to change that up by externalizing some of the configuration. I'm going to dive into that in a little bit. And then I'm going to dive into how the registry looks like and what you can do and what one can do with the registry data, and how we intend on exposing this information. So as Sam said, the registry is currently very static data. The agent spins up and then it posts this metadata and then it just sits there. But that's usually not how we want agents to run. We would most likely want to be able to A/B test our agents, or we would like to tweak the prompt a little bit, or we would like to rotate a key here and there. which are all things that are part of the agent's metadata. So the agent metadata is really just the agent's instantiation and reference to objects so that they can be discovered and used. So one of the things that we've been working on, apart from being able to load state and configuration from a state store, I'm going to showcase all of this because it's very OTel specific, but I'm going to showcase that in the 1.17 release party. So please go see that. We also allowing loading of environment variables to set the agent, and now we are looking into the configuration stores and subscribing to configuration updates, which means that we'll be able to hot reload while the agent is running its configuration. So one of the new things we've added, and this is very much still in the making, so you're getting a glimpse in of what we're working on to put into 1.0, is to be able to pass an agent's configuration config, just like we can pass state configs into an agent, and then just pass that into a durable agent. You'll see, as Sam had, my agent also has a name, it has a role, it has a goal, set of instructions. Take note of these. These are the ones we'll be fiddling with in a little bit, and I'm going to be using Redis as the backing store for subscribing to configuration updates. So I'm going to run my agent. I'm going to use the one of the quick starts agents that I've repurposed for this. And I just wrapped it with Dapr run, and then I wrapped it with a function to handle exchanging the API key, so there's no API keys being leaked in any way. So what happens in this agent is that we use the start agent. You'll see this agent is very different from what Sam showed, and it's less than ideal way of doing it. But this is because I want to be able to showcase that we actually hot reload it. And when we use the serve, that isn't fully functional like that. So this is to be able to log this information. As you can see in my terminal, I hope it's clearly visible. If not, Mark, let me know. It posts out.
Maybe zoom in like one more time on the
yeah.
terminal side.
So as you can see, the printout has the current role, which is the original role. It has the original goal, and it has the original instructions. So if we go into Redis,
sorry, Jasper, I'm not sure if you're actually seeing the same things.
Oh, hold on. Let me try to reshare. Hold on.
Less a bit. Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
Oh, yeah,
and
perfect.
if I attach my other window, that should come up as well, right? And you will be able to see this.
Now I see it. Yeah.
Okay, I do see that. Okay, so the attaching of second window does not work. Let me instead not do that. Sorry about this, Mark.
That's okay.
You will just have to trust me that I, inside Redis Insights, attach a new string key into the key called agent role or agent goal or agent instructions. So I'm going to insert that Dapr agents is awesome as a key, and I'm clicking add key now. And as you can see, the agent realized, whoop, there is an update for the configuration key that I'm subscribing to. It's the agent role. And it's applying the hot loading with the data that I inserted. Dapr agents is awesome. And then the subsequent printing of the agent profile.role is now that Dapr agents is awesome. And we can do this for the other ones as well. So let's set a string for its agent goal. And then I can give a shout out to, hi, Mikkel. Thanks for watching the stream. And I can add that key, which we now see in the agent goal. And the update in the agent's goal is now as set in. And the same applies for the instruction set that we can set in. And what this enables us to do is it enables us to start to externalize the agent's configuration, right? We can start to externalize and we can version the agent's prompt, the instructions, the role, the goal. We can start to externalize the API key. We can start to externalize the references to state if we want to be able to transparently migrate state from one store to another, for example, and have the agent truly long running. This means that the Dapr agent not only runs durably and reliably, but it will continue to run because the agent's configuration can be handled by using the configuration store construct from Dapr underneath. And this this also means that some of the metadata suddenly starts to become alive, right? It becomes dynamic and no longer static, because we can now alter it during the agent's runtime. So one of the things that that we've been working on, and I'm going to swap my screen now. Here we go. All right. So one of the things we've been working on is to take this metadata and make it rich and actionable and usable. And we have a PR that we're working on at the moment that also introduced a JSON schema with versioning so that consumers of this metadata can start to build content out of this metadata. And I'm going to showcase one way that that could look like. So as Sam showcased, we have the metadata set up here. I'm going to showcase one of the expert agents. It's one of the quick starts. It's quick start 09, if I'm not remembering incorrectly. And it has all of this metadata. It's nice and it's you know, functional, usable, and all of this, but it's less readable for normal humans. I read JSON relatively fluently, but a lot of people don't enjoy that part. So what can you do with this in a UI? And in a UI that could look like something like this. So here is an overview of extraction from that expert agent. Mind you, this is not the hot reloaded agent. This is a static agent. It's no longer running. But here you have a representation of all of the information that were in the metadata, and we can then, because we are also going to supply the JSON schema versioned in the GitHub repository, so that providers can query this data and make sure that the correct representations for the data that are in that versioned set of the metadata can be represented. We can start to build dynamic UIs as well, and we can start to integrate it with other metadata providers of agent frameworks. And those are some of the big chunks that we've been working on providing and getting into to 1.0 as we near the end of being ready for that release. I think that was the presentation I also had, Mark.
Thank you so much. Yeah. This looks really impressive, Anita. Yeah. Good to see both of these updates, Anita. And of course, very nice to hear that release note agent will be available as an action for everyone to use. That's amazing. Cool. Thank you so much. Let me quickly share the Dapr agents Git repo with everyone. We didn't do that yet, so let me do that right now. All right. So this will be like available then pretty soon, right? With also with Dapr Agent 1, but also some new stuff in 1.17. So yeah, we'll share more about that later. Cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks both.
Thank you.
All right. Then it's time for our next speaker, and that is Wildo to give us an update on the .NET SDK. So what's coming up for 1.17 on .NET area. So welcome Whit. You have your own screen, so I will get rid of mine and add yours. Here we go. Right, the floor is yours.
Awesome, thank you very much. Well, hi, I'm Whit Waldo. I'm the .NET SDK maintainer for Dapr. We've got a lot to cover, not a whole lot of time, just like last time. So we're going to do this in more of a rapid fire presentation. We're going to cover what's new in the SDK, what's broken in it, and just kind of look ahead to some of the things we can look forward to in the next release. So yeah, what's new? We've added support for .NET 10. So we were a little bit delayed in doing this year because of a delay in there was a delay releasing a package used for testing the Roslyn analyzers we take a dependency on, so we couldn't release our version until we had that updated package. So anyway, it's out. We target .NET 8, 9, and 10 now. We still target C# 12 as the syntax throughout, but the SDK itself has been updated to use the modern functionality, primary constructors, collection expressions, and especially in the last release, the experimental attributes, so that we can properly annotate things as obsolete when they actually are. We'll come back to that. Both .NET 8 and .NET 10, or I'm sorry, 8 and 9 will be end of life this November, the standard .NET release cycle. So depending on the Dapr release schedule, I intend to retain support for them for one Dapr release behind that EOL. So if we release Dapr in December, that next release will drop 8 and 9. And of course, add support for .NET 11 as soon as possible. Of course, we'll have more updates on this as we approach the state closer to the end of the year. So other features, the Conversation API received some updates. We've got support for 2 new options, prompt cache retention. It sets the policy for how you're retaining data in the prompt cache, and the response format used to course that response into whatever format it is that you want. Some providers offer a token usage breakdown, so that is now, if it's provided by the provider, you can access it from the deserialized response. The PubSub bulk publish API is now stable. No API or no SDK changes needed to support this. We simply reflect the updated protos for it. Service invocation is considered obsolete at this point. Service invocation methods themselves. The recommendation is that you use your own client, gRPC or HTTP, to contact your own services. There is a static method, Dapr clients.create invoke HTTP client. You'll provision an HTTP client based on how you've registered Dapr clients. So any API tokens that you've specified will be automatically appended into that, and will continue to route through the sidecar. So you can still use service discovery. There's no plans that this will be necessarily deprecated. It's not going to just suddenly stop working, but they are marked with obsolete to let you know that that's not the recommended approach going forward. This release introduces test container support to perform integration testing across the SDK. It has support for configuring tests to run against specific Dapr runtimes. It can automatically set up Dapr services like placement scheduler, and then automatically build and map the components to use in those tests. So for example, workflows requires that you have a state store that implements the actor state store flag. It will automatically set all that stuff up for you, so you don't have to worry about it. It can be configured to swap the running order for Dapr, run Dapr first, or before or after your application, so you can validate load order and how that impacts anything. And tests are built following the older ASP.NET Core style of testing, in that you configure dependency application for your application, then doing kind of post-build setup before then executing your test against it. All of our testing uses XUnit, but the implementation itself is not framework dependent, except that we do have a helper package. So if you install Dapr test containers XUnit, I've got a replacement attribute in there for the minimum Dapr runtime fact. And that largely allows the test to skip that test if the testing runtime version is lower than the indicated December value, so that you can version gate your tests. So we do that inside the SDK, so that if something was only implemented against the 117 runtime, we're not testing that against the 116 runtime and then breaking our tests. So you're welcome to use that too if you need it. The module has been published to the test container registry at the URL on the slide, and I'll incrementally update that example as I'm making changes to the API. We don't have support for all packages yet in this release. Support is AI distributed lock jobs, workflow, and workflow versioning, but I'll continue to add more support for more of those harnesses in 1.18. And eventually we'll look to migrate all of our integration testing to use this instead of our older framework. You're welcome to look to the SDK testing to see how to implement this into your own tests. We don't have a whole lot of time to dig into it. I know my example is tiny on the slide, but that's the smallest one we got. Do be warned, I'm making regular changes to the public API for this project. So use some caution in your own tests, as the shape of it may change a little bit. But it's probably not likely to change dramatically from its current state. Workflows got a significant overhaul in this release, so it's kind of the big focus of this. We see a full rewrite of Dapr.workflow in this release. It removed the dependency on durable task altogether. It removes all the logic that's not directly used by Dapr, and then applies more modern best practices from .NET to the architecture in that syntax. So for example, it now has nullability support. It's drop-in compatible with existing usage for Dapr.workflow. The public APIs and namespaces are unchanged, except if you get the workflow state, that returns a nullable value. So that's the only thing that flagged during testing. Because DI registration changed as a result of this rewrite, this release fixes a community reported bug, number 1567, in which Serolog registration was breaking. because it utilizes singletons, and the old version of workflow would rebuild the service provider as part of the setup. So this is unblocked in that sense. We're no longer rebuilding service provider as part of registration. Because of that rewrite, I've eliminated several classes of bugs that were present in the last release. It supports automatic gRPC client reconnections, and we're better utilizing that gRPC client to improve reliability and performance across the board, but especially under heavy load. We've got a handful of new capabilities I'm going to run through in the following slides. So first, it's easier to test them. So because it's a rewrite, it's built on top of interfaces, making it much easier to do mocking. Previously we had a bunch of classes, we had a bunch of sealed classes. This is much easier to test against. Again, for lack of time, we'll move on. You can look to the SDK to see how we've implemented our unit tests to see how that is practiced and use. We've got task execution IDs. These were implemented in the runtime in 1.16, but they're only coming to the SDK now. They largely allow you to have identifiers that are accessible off the workflow context, so that you can identify when a workflow or an application, an activity is replayed, to understand it is a different invocation than the previous one. We have multi-app support, so we're able to call activities that reside in another app. We're able to call workflows that reside in another app. For either one, define the task options for whichever one is that you're doing, pass that into the standard call. It's an optional parameter at the end. Yeah, there you go. Again, this is something that was implemented in the runtime in 1.16. So if you want to use this in your app, you have to install the 1.17 version of the SDK, but you could stay on the 1.16 runtime, though of course an upgrade is recommended. Workflows now supports pluggable serialization. So as with the previous release, it uses system.text.json by default, but it does now use JSON serializer defaults.web with the indicated defaults. You are able to specify your own JSON serializer options now. This was a popular request in the issues. Do that by essentially creating your workflow builder and specify with the JSON serializer, pass your options into that. You can also provide your own serializer if you want. If you want to, I don't know, support your own protobuf serializer, you want to support message pack, you're welcome to do that. Implement something, implement your type using iWorkflow serializer. Largely, it just has a serialized to and from string, and drop it in there, register it during startup, and passing options that you need into it, and it will use that instead. I would recommend that you pick a serialization scheme and stick with it. So do note that the serialization only impacts data from within this SDK. So if you're using multi-app workflows, consider sticking with the defaults, the system text JSON, because this is what the other SDKs are going to be using themselves by default. We'll talk about versioning next, but do note that versioning will not apply to your serialization. So don't necessarily expect to use a serializer in one release of your workflow, create a new workflow version, and suddenly see it transition between serializers. If there's demand for that, please open an issue in Dapr.net SDK, and I can consider it for a future release, but it is not supported in this one. So workflow versioning, this is kind of the big idea for this release. So a quick recap, because Dapr Workflows is implemented to use event sourcing, workflows must be written and run deterministically. Activities don't have to be. So this is why activities have supported dependency injection in .NET, but workflows have not. So workflows require that you create a replay safe logger from the workflow context itself, instead of being able to inject an iLogger for that purpose. But this has proven to be a problem for some people that have long-running workflows. If you need to change the workflow logic, how do you do it? So prior to this release, you'd have to identify and terminate all the existing in-flight or idle workflows, restart each one with their originally intended state, and then point to a new workflow name, so as though you had started from scratch. And of course, there's a problem for all sorts of reasons. What if you don't have the original state? Identifying the workflows is a problem. So earlier this year, I drafted a proposal to introduce versioning into workflows, and after a lengthy discussion with other contributors and maintainers, I merged my proposal for a name-based versioning approach with another for patch-based versioning. If you look at Dapr proposals, those would be, mine was 82, the other one was 92. We converged on 94 and work proceeded on this kind of dual prong versioning approach. So you can read more if you're interested in how this works under the hood in that proposal. But the problem understood then is to offer patch-based versioning and name-based versioning. So let me give a quick overview of each and why it's less of a question of using one or the other, and instead why it is that you'll likely want to use both. So patch-based versioning, you have a starting workflow. This is no different from anything you would have necessarily built, except that this doesn't really do anything useful, but it fits on the slide, so we're sticking with it. The workflow runs, it's going to call the send email activity, it's going to provide an input to it. In theory, this would send some kind of an email with that intended payload. But what if the business requirements change? And say this is for vacation approval requests. What if you require 2 weeks notice? Well, a patch enables you to do that. So the workflow context now exposes a method called isPatched. And so you can pick any identifier you want as that patch name argument, and then put your new logic within this if statement. Don't otherwise modify the workflow outside of the true path of any of these patch statements. And then if when deployed, if there are any in-flight workflows, they'll continue to run as originally intended. Any new workflows that have started from scratch will opt into this new isPatched path. That route will be persisted in the workflow history so that as you add other patches throughout, the workflow will take the, if they're part of the history, it'll go through the true route. If not, it'll take an else route if it's provided, if that patch isn't in the history. But this gives you a kind of an in-class way of changing the workflow itself between deployments while keeping the workflow itself deterministic. So you just keep adding patches as you need to. Some considerations you should keep in mind. It will break that deterministic contract if you reuse the same patch names between deployments. So don't do that. Don't add. I guess in my case, I add needs 2 weeks notice. Don't, if you release a deployment with that, don't re-release that same patch later on, because that's going to be part of the version history. If you suddenly add that to future deployments, you're going to mess up our version history. Nest patches with caution. So you should always nest within older patches. If you have V1 on the outside, put V2 inside of it, because generally you have to ensure that when the replay runs, it's able to access and take the false route as you add those new patches, or else it's going to fail at runtime. Patches are exclusively additive. So once you have added them and you've deployed your application, you should neither move where they are in your workflow nor remove them from your workflow. It's imperative that they stay where they're at, because again, this is matched against the workflow history as your workflow is replayed for in-flight workflows. If you know for a fact that all your workflows are completed and that all the workflows following the deployment would be brand new, you could in theory make more elaborate changes, but it's not recommended. Rather, we would recommend to use name-based versioning. So name-based versioning allows you to effectively start from scratch. You introduce a workflow that uses the same base name, but you apply a version identifier suffix to it. So the recommended pattern, this, by the way, I guess this will change ever so slightly from one SDK to the other. I'm just talking through the .NET approach. So you're gonna have a versioning identifier suffix. The recommended pattern is to copy your existing workflow to a new file, increment the version name, the identifier at the end, and then refactor as deeply as you want before the next deployment. So if you want to just remove all the patches, if you want to make other changes to how the workflow itself works, more power to you. You can do anything you want. Effectively, it is effectively a new workflow, because when execution against the old workflow completes, and it's either creating a new child workflow, starting a new, or something else is scheduling a new workflow, the internal engine is going to route to your new workflow and run that instead. So it doesn't matter what's in the old one. The old one needs to be there so that in-flight workflows can continue to execute against it. But otherwise, once they're complete, they're going to shift to the new one. So again, you can make whatever changes you want. So it's a great opportunity to remove any if else spaghetti you might have, and instead start scratch, refactor, make it nice and clean again, set yourself up for adding patches again down the road. If you keep your workflows and their versions in another project, which you might do if you're expecting a lot of named versions, you can add this flag to your executing project csproj to scan references of build time for those workflows instead of just looking inside the current application. This is I guess the flag is required by and not applied by default to ensure that other assemblies aren't scanned unnecessarily at build time. So only actually use it if you're putting workflows in another assembly. Don't just do it prophylactically. The workflows themselves, you can the name-based versioning in this SDK are implemented to use a strategy. There are three built-in strategies: a numeric, a date, and a symver approach. And the idea is that you are simply applying a suffix to the name of your workflow. And you can apply, there are a whole bunch of different options you can apply. If you have a prefix for that suffix, so if you have my workflow version 2, as I have in the example on the slide, it's going to break out the canonical name for what's the base name that binds all your workflow types, and it's going to identify version 2 because the V is part of the version, but it's simply an optional prefix for the suffix. If you want to use a date, you can do that as well. And one of the options is to specify whatever format it is that you like. And it also supports a symver if you want to do something with builds and RCs and whatever else you want to add onto the end. They're very configurable built-in strategies. By default, it's going to use the numeric approach, and you can configure and inject any kind of options into this in order to configure change how it behaves. So you may be happy with it using the built-in numerical version strategy. You may want to simply change the suffix. You may want to make it case insensitive. You can set any of those options yourself. But as a result, when you introduce the new version, I guess my slides are out of order. You'll start with a basic named version. Here I'm copying exactly what we had before: vacation approval workflow. You can be forgiven for not knowing that we were going to add versioning into this, and so you probably didn't add V1, V0 to this beforehand. That's more than fine. We'll cover that in a second. Again, the idea is that you're going to copy your existing workflow into a file, increment that version name, refactor as deeply as you want before your next deployment. And all you have to do is install the Dapr workflows versioning, specify your strategy and options, and it'll just kind of be on Mac. So that when you come in and you add another version, and again, sorry, it's a little bit small. The difference being that you've added V2 here to the suffix. You can refactor otherwise however you want. When you rebuild your application, it will automatically identify these changes and use that. So what's a little bit different about this? When you're invoking and scheduling a new workflow, you're going to use the canonical name without the version value, and that's because you don't necessarily want to have to go through your entire application, find keep track of your own versions as you introduce them. You want to just set them all once, call them whatever versions you introduce. So in this case, we've got vacation approval workflow V2. You'll simply continue to use name of vacation approval workflow. The SDK will automatically route accordingly to the most recent value available. So you got version 3.4.5. It wraps up with version 2. It doesn't go through the version sequentially. It will always jump to the latest one. So it wraps up version 2. Next invocation is going to run version 5. You don't have to change anything in your application except rebuild it and redeploy it. Some best practices: retain all workflows until you're confident that there are no more in-flight workflows using older versions. It's cheap to include types in your application. I would just leave them. It's safe to use with patching. So once you introduce a new version, feel free to add patching again. Once you have spaghetti code, it's too complicated to understand. Factor into another version. Re-release, repeat. Once you pick a versioning scheme, stick to it. At this point, migration between versioning schemes isn't supported. Again, if there's a need for that, feel free to file an issue in the Dapr repo, and I'll look into it. Let's see here. Finally, note that name versioning doesn't use reflection, so there is no startup penalty. So it works via an incremental source generator to identify all the types that implement the Dapr workflow in your solution at build time, and then it generates a workflow registry to apply your versioning strategy at runtime and selector two. So it comes with a useful side effect. In previous versions of Dapr, you have to register both all of your activities and all of your workflows, so they're available at DI. If you install this package, you can skip the workflows. All you have to do is register the activities themselves. Workflows will be automatically identified. And again, if you include let's see where I put it. There it is. If you include this note in your CS proj, it will, again, it's going to automatically scan all the reference assemblies if you're putting workflows in there. So again, there's no need to specify these things, any of the workflows themselves yourself. There's no need to register them. It will automatically find them all, maintain its own registry. You don't have to indicate that some workflow is the most recent version. You don't have to figure out how do you map from one version to the other. All that's just done automatically for you under the hood. So breaking changes, the only real one is the service identification that we're adding the obsolete flag to. So I'll refer to the 117 documentation. We'll have a page and how to set up either the no warn CS proj statement or pragma statements to accommodate those attributes. Looking ahead, looking forward to still richer integration between Aspire and Dapr, continuing to build out the discrete Dapr packages, and then building out more of the test harnesses. And that's it. If there's anything else you want to see, please file a feature request in GitHub in the .NET SDK repo. If it's a feature you want to see in Dapr itself, file that in Dapr. And again, a big thank you to everyone who uses the .NET SDK. It's thanks for calling out issues in Discord, for filing issues on GitHub, and testing out the RCs, and contributing any pull requests with new features. Thank you for your time today, and happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Wow, thanks, Whit. This was very thorough. Thank you for this. Oof,
Absolutely.
a lot of things in it that I would like to. Well, first of all, I'm very happy with the conversation API changes to include token usage and response formatting, because I definitely was needing that. So thanks for that. But also, I didn't realize also you have an option now to specify the serialization for workflows. That's, I think, was a big
Absolutely, yeah, brand new
as well. So that is super cool. Yeah, and I also didn't realize actually the named versioning indeed would work like this. Yeah, because it's actually easier than I thought it would be. So that was the goal. This is good to realize.
Yeah. Versioning is designed to be extremely transparent. So much like applying a new version to SQL. And trying to just generate what's the differences and apply that, and then otherwise you don't really care about what's in the old types. The same thing's true here. Create your new workflow, refactor it however you want, save the old workflows so they're still there for replay purposes, but otherwise you don't otherwise need to do anything. The compiler is going to handle all that stuff for you.
Yeah, I definitely like that part, that you don't have to update the client who's actually calling or manage the workflow. That's
right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay, very cool stuff. Oh, and by the way, so the service invocation part, the certification API itself is of course there and will not go away. This is purely about the invoke method in the .NET SDK that's right. being marked as obsolete, and we should favor the HTTP client usage. Yeah. That's
right. Oh, yeah. Essentially, use your own client. We will assemble one for you. We've got a static method for it, and that's not being marked as obsolete. It's just the reflection-based approach is not ideal. It's better that you identify how you should be what are the entry points in your application, identify them yourself in whatever your best practices are, but you can still continue to use the Dapr service discovery to send the request to say http:// the name of your app, and then whatever, and of course that's going to route through Dapr and go to that application. So you can still continue to use that, just don't necessarily use the invocation aspect of it.
Cool. All right, thanks so much, Whit, for this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right, let me remove your screen sharing because we will continue with the last part, and the community show and tell. So what has been created by the community and what's upcoming. So, well, the first thing already hinted by a couple of you is the Dapr 117 celebration event. So Dapr 117 is about to be released very soon, and we will celebrate that on March 4th. And hosted by Digrid. So there's a link. I will also share actually the link right here. So if you want to register, you can do that straight away. Oh, not here. It's the private chat. This is the public chat. Here we go. So yeah, if you want to get like a good overview of all the new features in Dapr 117, yeah, please join this celebration event. You can also win some Lego. So I'm definitely going to be there because I need more Lego. All right, and what's also coming up in the next month is two things in the Netherlands, actually, close to home for me. First up is Future Tech. I'll be speaking there about Dapr Workflow. I'll actually be making music with Dapr Workflow. I hope it's going to be recorded. It'll be nice. And then later in the same month, it will be KubeCon Europe. So it will be in Amsterdam, and there are at least 4 different Dapr sessions. I'm not sure if I found all of them, but yeah. As usual, Dapr will be covered in quite a bit in KubeCon, so there will also be a Dapr project booth there. I will be there also. Only one of the Dapr steering committee members will be there. So yeah, if you're attending KubeCon, please drop by at the Dapr project booth. All right. Some blog posts and podcasts. In this case, only some blog posts. There is like a 3-part Dapr Workflow and .NET Aspire blog post by Ajay. So thank you very much for writing that up. There's more like an introductory post, but yeah, it's labeled as part 1. So there will be more. So probably part of a series by Mark Johnson. So check it out. There's like a blog post on the OpenTelemetry blog about improving async workflow observability in Dapr. So we stay on topic with all of the workflow stuff. Some of the things on YouTube, I found two new videos, both from some previous conferences happening. So one is in French. Yeah, the other one was, I don't think this was English, to be honest. I think this was Spanish. So yeah, if you're able to follow that, either French or Spanish, have a look at these 2 sessions. A lot of stuff happening on social media, mentioning like, Sam, here your messages again, announcing a new release of Dapr agents, Jeroen being interviewed also about Dapr agents. The OpenTelemetry blog that I just mentioned was being promoted. So a lot of stuff happening. And finally, I want to always highlight our Dapr Discord. We have quite a big Discord. This was from the workflow channel where Patrick had some questions, and Ollie was so kind to help him out. So thank you very much for your help, Ollie. So finally, the Dapr community is pretty big, and there are like different ways how you can engage with us. Next to the Discord, there's also like these community calls, which of course you can join. Maybe you're using Dapr yourself, so feel free to connect with me, and we can share in a call or in an interview how you're using Dapr. If you want to like give a Dapr presentation, either at a conference or internally, there's like several Dapr slide decks that you can download from the Dapr docs to get you started up and running. And you can collect all kinds of Dapr badges. So if you're contributing to code or to the website or to the documentation, we will give you some digital badges that you can collect. And that's one of them. So thank you for joining this community call. Feel free to claim this community supporter badge, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks. And hopefully see you at KubeCon Europe. Bye, everyone.